Excuse me, Nicola. The rare event of my mobile phone ringing needs to be stopped.
God, really?
No, hold. I can't even find it. Hold on.
It's not happened in 5 years, Judith.
I know. Let me just see. One missed call. Oh, Sharon. Right, I have to call you back, Sharon.
Someone's got your mobile number.
Oh, quite a lot of people have got it these days because I'm mobile, aren't I?
Of course you are, yeah. Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. How are you?
All right, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So how's your life? You've been on the move, I understand.
Yes, do you want me to tell you about my week first?
Yeah, go on then.
Well, surprisingly, I'm not where you think I am.
Oh, okay.
I told you I was going to be at my brother's house, didn't I?
Yes.
But on Monday morning, I looked at trusted house sitters, and there was an opportunity for Wednesday night, which is last night, and tonight, Thursday, to be in Cambridgeshire, which is the 2 nights I had spare. So I said, I can do those if you want me to. And they said, yes, please. So here I am. You're going to like this, as you often say to me in these podcasts, because these 2 cats, which are rag dolls, that's their breed, which is the same variety as that awful experience I had with Kittengate. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Well, these rag dolls are much better behaved, but the good story about them is they're called. Prepare yourself for this, okay? Because it's a test. Yeah. The boy is called Jon Snow.
Okay.
And the girl is called Saga.
Game of Thrones all the way.
Well, not the second one, no. Oh. Game of Thrones for Jon Snow.
Yeah.
Who was Saga?
I don't know.
She was the leather trouser wearing Porsche driving detective in The Bridge.
Ah, I've never seen that.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Oh, what a shame, because, I mean, I've never seen Game of Thrones, so we got one each, basically. But on the way here, I got the house sits mixed up, and I thought, well, I think Jon Snow's from Game of Thrones, but the cat's 14 years old, and I don't think Game of Thrones is... Anyway, cut a long story short, the cats are both 3 years old, which makes much better sense.
Oh, right, anyway, so you're getting your cats muddled up.
Well, because I've got another gig that starts tomorrow, and okay. I'm booked in for another one in December, and when you read all of these notes, they all kind of blur into one, which is this Lauren or Amanda or Lisa? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's all a bit confused. Anyway, I'm staying in this very, very stylish house where they met. They're both Brits. He's self-employed, slightly Armenian. She's slightly Greek, which is a very exotic combo. They're very beautiful. Their first baby is expected on Christmas Day, and they've done up this house. Well, I could stay here. The bed was comfortable. The bathroom's beautiful. It's warm. It's just enough like a cottage to be like a cottage, but inside it's completely modern and stylish.
I love that. I love it when people do. In fact, in Greece, that's a real big trend now. They buy. There's an architect called HHH Consultants, and they buy up old stone houses and they turn them into the most top quality
contemporary inside, which is what we want, isn't it? We want to live like that inside with the sort of, I mean, everything inside is modern and new, except for, say, the tile floor or you know, they haven't changed the structure.
Where they've shipped in something that's been recycled from an ancient.
Oh, actually, I think this floor is probably original. They've kept the best bits of the original and then changed absolutely everything else. And they've put on a modern extension in the back, and they've done up the garden beautifully. Everything about it is exquisite. You know, they can get their car off the main road. There's nothing. Well, they're one of those people who do strange things with washing machines. They hide it down the garden somewhere. But apart from that. I'm in heaven. It's strange. We discussed it before. The strange urge to put your washing machine out of sound
and sight.
Well, I don't know. I don't think the sight offends people of a washing machine. It's the noise of a washing machine that seems to offend people. Whereas I find it quite comforting. Actually.
Yeah, so do I. I like the sound of a washing machine. I
like the sound of my clothes getting clean. Anyway, so that's point one. So I'm off again tomorrow, which is good and bad. I'm looking forward to where I'm going next, and I'll tell you why later. I watched the 3 rugby players on X Factor as advised. Not my bag, but I can see why they would be appealing. I thought it was very nice to see a man band, as you said. One of them, the least attractive and the least good singer, was on Strictly a few years ago, so I've seen him before. But the black chap and the other one, I think they're very attractive. Not my thing. And I also watched Kanye and James Corden, which I enjoyed a lot more than the three men on it. I absolutely bloody loved it, Nicola. I was crying and singing.
Oh, good.
I know. That was brilliant. I could watch that again, actually.
I put it on my feel-good YouTube list.
I definitely. Well, I'll share a link in our Facebook group later, because I think...
I think he talked about his faith, as someone who's a confirmed atheist, I think he talked about his faith very nicely.
I agree. And then actually, when you're always talking about your aversion to it, and I don't push my agenda, unusually for me, he has that same lovely low keyness that I have. So he's not a born again, everybody's got to convert. No. He's just found something that's very comforting for him. Yes, he's sharing the message through a gospel choir, but again, they're not, gospel choirs sing about God. We all know that. It doesn't seem to offend people somehow. Anyway, carrying on, because I've got lots to tell you in this section.
Because I haven't got much this week.
So God, most of my stuff is in the social section. Okay. A friend that I met when I was an accountant, I was her accountant, and she became a friend because, through that route. I've known her for, I don't know, when did I buy that house? 1988, something like that. She sent me an email the night before last to tell me that her father had died. Oh. And her father is... we call him the miracle man of Maidstone, because he had an operation in Maidstone Hospital once, and the doctor said if he'd known what he was going to find when he cut him open, he would never have done the operation. He would have just left him to die. And they are very, interestingly, we're talking about religion, that their family are very Roman Catholic religious, and her mother and Lorna set up camp in the Travelodge on the bypass for months. And the miracle man of Maidstone pulled through and has lived on for another, I don't know, more than 10 years, I would say. And Lorna sent me a very moving note saying, how long he'd been married to her mother, something like 64 years or something. But the interesting part of this story is that Lorna was a chef, had her own catering business, and she did the funeral tea for my dad's funeral in April 1992, which is 27 years ago, I think. And because of my house-sitting commitments this week and next, I don't even think I'll be able to go to her father's funeral, which is, there are people whose funeral you would always want to be at, and, people whose relatives' funerals you would always want to be at, and that would be one of them, but I don't think I'm going to be able to go. And while we're on the subject of death and cats, I thought that Mitzi, my own cat, who I had to give up to become a house sitter.
I remember Mitzi.
Yeah, well, Mitzi's new mum, a client of mine called Tracy, PM'd to say, oh my God, we've got to go to the doctor. We think she's got cancer. As it happens, she's got an overactive thyroid, and the diagnosis is some medicine and a high-calorie diet. Don't you envy Mitzi? Oh, she's been prescribed by the doctor a high-calorie diet.
Yes. Wow, that's good.
So her last few years, she's going to get fat and jolly. Yeah. And then within the same 12-hour period that Lorna wrote about her dad dying, my brother wrote to say that Christmas this year would not be at their house, but it would be in Devizes in Wiltshire with the family that we've spent the last 2 years to, which means I won't be able to go because I'm house-sitting a cat who has to have his medicine twice a day in Lewisham, and I thought Surrey was going to be a bit of a stretch to be out and back, because I'm normally the DJ and it goes on till dawn.
Yes.
And that would have meant depriving Phoenix of his life-saving meds. So I think I'm going to be at home in a tower block next to Lewisham Police Station on Christmas Day. Toot Searle, Nicola.
Not very festive then.
Yes, well, I've ordered my turkey. I got my slot last night on Ocado. I don't mind, actually. I quite like the Morgans often have quite a volatile Christmas where there's sort of drink-induced shouting. Well, yeah. I won't have any risk of that this year.
No.
Anyway, that's my week. Quite hectic on the social front, I think.
Well, I too am going to mention the death topic. No cats, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's been 2 or 3 people that I care about have lost people they love very much.
Yeah.
One of whom is a lady who I used to do quite a lot of business with about, just after the money gym finished.
Yep.
She was a lifeline for me in one of the years, particularly.
Yes.
And she married a really lovely chap, and it was like a late relationship. It wasn't either of their first.
Yes.
They seemed extremely happy. And I didn't realise until about a year ago that he was the father of one of Phoebe's friends, who I like enormously.
Okay.
So I know his son, and I know his wife, and he got a cancer diagnosis, died very suddenly. It was literally within about 3 or 4 months, and it's so sad because it made me realise that words, it took me obviously straight back to when
yes,
Steve.
It does, yeah.
And it made me realise trying to communicate to this woman who I haven't spoken to for several years and don't know her address, so couldn't send her a card or anything, but finally tracked down on Facebook. So I couldn't remember her. She still works under her maiden name, and I couldn't remember her maiden surname. So I managed to track her down eventually, and I didn't want to go through Elliot. So I texted Elliot, because that's how you communicate with the young nowadays.
Yes.
Say, how sorry I was and everything, and I finally tracked her down through Facebook and just gave it a few days, then reached out and just said, look, I'm in Shoreham. If you ever want a drink or a coffee or someone to talk to about your partner, without any embarrassment about tears or anger or anything you might be feeling, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I thought, words are just so inadequate, and I wanted to share. I shared a poem with her that I found helpful, and she thanked me for that. And but you just don't. You can't help people. That's the thing.
Well, I think you can. Let me tell you how. And you've done it already. Which is, once you've been bereaved, your usefulness to the bereaved is that you're not embarrassed to discuss death. Yes. And whenever I write a letter of condolence, even though it's been decades since my people have died, I still sob, and it's still therapeutic, and you get it out of your system and you express. There's more healing for your own loss whilst you are commiserating with others over theirs. But just to be available, that when ordinary people, when she runs out of ordinary people and she still wants to blub and talk, as you do endlessly, you'll be perfect for that. You're the second rank of people. You can have a cup of coffee and the two of you can sob in a coffee shop and nobody cares, because this is how death takes us. And being available to people, as a person who's been bereaved, as opposed to a person who hasn't been and knows nothing of death, is the most, it's the upside. If there is an upside of loss yourself, it's that you can be with people.
You want to talk about it longer than
you do
feel is appropriate.
Absolutely right. Yeah, everybody else comes to the funeral. You're special for a fortnight. They come to the funeral, then they go on with their normal lives and expect you to do the same. And you can never do that. Never.
No. So the more, and that was another reason about going to Stupa, was I found Steph, who'd just been recently bereaved, and we regularly sat in tavernas and sobbed together.
Quite.
It was very, very.
I mean, and the interesting thing about your situation with Steve is that you were quite young, so your contemporaries didn't have much experience of it. But this lady sounds a bit older, and her contemporaries at least probably might have had some experience of it, and so she might have more people available to her than you did when you lost Steve.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just interesting. And the other thing I've spent the week doing is helping Phoebe navigate the sea of sharks that is the modelling world.
Oh, God. Well, when my niece was going to do it, Colin said to me, surely you don't want her to do that. It's worse than sharks. It's terrible.
Well, there's a lot of agencies out there who approach kids on social media, and how they make their money, I don't know, because it doesn't seem enough to make a good business out of. But they try to charge them anything from 50 quid to 200 to 300 quid for a model
portfolio,
portfolio, and or the admin for the contract.
Yes.
She's had 2 approaches by people who haven't asked her for any money up front, and in fact, one has said they pay within 10 days of getting paid themselves, and they also front them occasionally. They ask them to do jobs that run paid for new clients, for example, and they front them the expenses on that. So there are decent ones out there, but it's difficult because it's very tempting to say, oh, it's only 50 quid or it's only 40 quid or whatever. But as I talked her down from going to see one in Essex, because the journey just looked absolutely horrendous. And it had changed its name, this agency. And I found, just by typing in the name plus scam, as you do, I found a lot of bad press about them in their previous incarnation. So, they took it quite well when she cancelled. It's been an interesting experience. It really has, because there's the hope, you're peddling hope.
Yes, you are. Well, but I'm afraid it's a gateway to very dark places in our world.
Yeah. So, and the other thing I found really interesting is looking at their websites tells you a lot, because On the one in Essex, they looked really good on the outside of the website, but then as you navigated deeper, the pages got less and less maintained, and the pages of models they were showing had some people who really shouldn't be models at all, So they're obviously the people who paid to go on the pages, and that's how they're wiggling around the law at the moment. Is they're charging for listings on websites and for the admin fee for contracts rather than a fee to join the agency, which is, it's the same by any other name, isn't it? But that's how they're getting around the agency, the Employment Agency Act.
Yes.
So, but she's got a gig coming up in Brighton soon with some people that she did some work with as a photographer, as a videographer behind the scenes, and so she's dealing directly with the company themselves, and they're going to pay her direct and give her lunch. She was most impressed with the lunch bit.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I'm looking forward.
And also Brighton, if anything goes wrong, you're not very far away for a rescue. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't have to go with necessarily, but I could be available to pick up if I needed.
Yes.
So that was my week really. I haven't really done an awful lot apart from tinkering with websites. Still, well, I'll tell you about what's going on with my work in the project update.
Let me just ask one more question about the safety of the modelling. Do you have that app where you can track where your children are?
Yes.
Yes, good. I would be very alert to that on the days of modelling assignments.
Well, I would be if it's in London, I'm going with.
Yeah, okay.
End of story. And I said,
yes.
I'm not going to any photo shoot in London without me coming with you.
No, okay.
Even though she's 24, she's a tiny 24 and a young-looking 24, and I really want us to do that. And also, she's not very au fait with travelling around London, on her own. She would find that quite stressful. So I said, well, I'll come with you on any at least initial till you feel more comfortable with people.
Yeah, okay.
But so I think we've come up with two good ones and a direct job, and definitely making over our websites helped because she's sharing that around a lot more than she used to because she was embarrassed about it. So
a couple of raunchy shots, I thought, on the website.
Yes, well, she wanted to put those in because she doesn't mind doing underwear modelling, and she's got a fabulous body, and so why not put them in? I'm a little bit, oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
But she went for it. So, the thing is, she's actually quite a feminist. Well, she's a feminist, a staunchy feminist, and she says what she does with her own body is her own.
I totally agree. As long as your asset's not being exploited by somebody else,
exactly, yes.
There's no issue. Yeah.
No, exactly. And so, I found myself feeling a little bit Victorian mum about a couple of them.
Yes, I went a bit Victorian mum. I went and had a look after you said you, and I went, I was a bit shocked.
Shot.
Yes, and then I sort of swallowed it and got over it. But yes, I was a bit shocked. Yeah.
Well, no, and she.
I mean, they're very discreet.
Well, they're quite tasteful, exactly.
Yes,
so.
yeah.
But I think she's definitely more drawn to the fashion and makeup end of it. But she's quite militant about that. It's my body, I'll do what I like with it.
I agree with her. I also think it's possible that if the first few go well and she gets in with somebody you as a family like and trust, and that further referrals come from that, you'll be fine.
What's fueled your fire this week?
You tell me about yours. Okay. Mine's quite short here.
Okay, well, I've been, I ordered a book a while ago and I totally forgot about it, as you do. And then it arrived this week, which is very exciting because I love a proper book. And it's Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. And it's the underground playbook for creating a mass movement of people who will pay for your advice. And it's very well written, very different to everything else that's out there. Great content. Easy to read because of the way it's laid out, and I thoroughly recommend it, as I do all his books. He's got, what's he got? He's got .com secrets, which I thoroughly enjoyed. He's got multi-level marketing secrets, which obviously I'm not so keen on the topic, but has got an awful lot of very solid advice in it. And then he's got expert secrets, which is if you're an expert in something. The map that will allow you to turn your specialised knowledge, talents and abilities into a business that will work for you. A forward by Robert Kiyosaki, no
slouch.
Or coup.
Yes. No slouch.
And he's got traffic secrets coming soon. But he's a person who's very cleverly using his books as a front end. You can't get a digital copy anywhere. There's no.
I thought when you said it had arrived and you'd forgotten, you probably just paid the postage for it, did you?
Yeah, I did pay the postage for it. Yeah, but it's interesting business model because he's teaching us how to do everything online, but he doesn't give his books away digitally. You have to send off for them, and I suppose that's so he can get your address, not that he probably intends to use it in the near future, but it makes his database and therefore his business much more valuable to have investors and people who are willing to pay $5 to $10 to get the book in their hands.
Yes.
So that's an interesting business model, but everyone after that gets funneled into the One Funnel Challenge, which I did read just recently. But this book's superb. It really is. I can't recommend it highly enough. So.
And also, if you're prepared to pay the postage and give your address, I think it gets you over that first hurdle that Sue O'Keller always used to talk about, which is it's not tire kickers getting something for free.
It's a trick one.
Yeah, it's people deliberately opting in for something they want, and they're more engaged with you from the get-go, in theory.
Yeah, absolutely. So he models his own business model very, very well. And I've got to say, he was someone who mentored Justin Brooke. And Justin was very, very impressed with him before he went to work for Rich Sheffrin. So his name's been on my radar for a long time, but he's actually an introvert who's become more visible as he's gone along because he's realised that people want a person to hang their loyalty onto, if you like. But he's very actively bringing forward his main success stories so that they can become leaders too. Interesting. Yep. He's really modelling it. His whole business has gone from zero to billions, literally within 5 to 7 years. It's quite impressive what he's achieved, and he's had no outside investment whatsoever.
Is he an American?
Yes, yeah.
It's quite an un-American name. It sounds like he comes from somewhere like Portsmouth, Russell Brunson.
I think he's an interesting character. He's very religious. He's a wrestling champion. And he lives in Boise, Idaho? He lives somewhere in the middle of the country. It's definitely Idaho somewhere.
Yeah.
Not in one of the sort of San Diego or one of those top internet marketing places. I think his content's very solid. So.
Last week you told me that more than 50% of Americans believed in God. So when you tell me that an American is religious, it's almost not worth saying anymore because it's odds on that they probably are.
Yes, I still find it really astonishing.
Well, yes, you would, but it's unremarkable in American terms.
Yeah, no, I suppose not.
Interesting.
So that's what's fueled my fire this week.
Okay, so mine is, I'm constantly what my EFT master Anne Ross would say: 1 foot on the accelerator and 1 foot on the gas, because I can't quite make up my mind whether I want to retire or keep working. And this week I've had 2 regular clients renew for a 2nd and 4th year respectively and pay for it in advance, and a handful of pay what you want clients book themselves into my diary and pay me various sums, including 2 people recently via Stripe, which I did set up, but God knows I can't remember when I did that or why. So that I've made my online diary software connect with Stripe, so you can pay like that if you want to.
Well done.
And the interesting thing is that several of them, have managed to do it without any clues, because there's no obvious route on my website to do this.
Really?
If you go to the blog, on the right-hand margin, it says book yourself into my diary and pay by PayPal. And 2 people have done that. And it's like, oh, God, it's practically hidden that. And I mean, when strangers turn up in there without me having given them a link, I think, oh, that's impressive, because I've really hidden that quite deeply on my website. So that's quite funny. Either that or they're reading a page that has a link to it that I've forgotten about, which is also quite likely. But anyway, the point is new and returning clients and lots of money.
Well, that's nice, isn't it?
Very nice. I've been on a bit of a spending spree.
So that must make you feel a bit conflicted when you get people booking in for another year.
Well, not the returners, no, because I would never take on a relationship with anybody I wasn't prepared to see through to the end. And the people that I know and that I'm doing good work with, happy to work with them forever. Yeah. New people you don't know yet, opening up new relationships which might last for a long time, that's the one that makes me feel conflicted. But only until I talk to them, and then they're always so wonderful. I can't help myself, really.
Yeah. So
yeah, but it's a strange old thing. When it eventually comes to disentangling myself, it's going to take me a while.
Well, the only thing to do is put the website down completely, isn't it?
Well, I have tried that, and you were just on my back about it, if you remember. And the only reason I opened it up again was because of Alice's podcast. But there we go. Doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm not complaining. I'm just noticing.
Right, so focus of the week then.
Yes, over to you, because I've been moving and I've had to say, can you just get a grip.
This is something that's been bubbling up over the last few weeks, really, and so a little preamble, and my thoughts, and then we'll discuss it between us.
Roger.
So, as you know, I absolutely love talent shows. I blub all the way through them. I am very happy to watch them, and I love the backstories as well. And I didn't really connect that to anything. And then I was watching something, I can't remember what it was last night. Or anything, hip hop talent shows. It's generally around music and singing, and I couldn't understand why I was so obsessed with them. And then the other side of this is the fact that
apart from the fact you worked in the music industry, you mean?
Yeah, I do like music, but it's more about the whole thing of people,
the journey,
to open their mouths and sing, because I can't. And the other thing is, as you know, I get quite frustrated with my sister Heather, who is a bit slow in doing anything with her not inconsiderable musical talent, and would always rather be doing DIY as far as I can see. And then I was getting, before Phoebe, I came back and Phoebe and I started working on her career a bit. I got very frustrated with her because I thought, she's so talented at photography, she's so talented at videography, she doesn't want to do it particularly. She's very beautiful, she could do modelling, she didn't want to do that particularly. And then I get frustrated with Sarah, who's got a real big talent for doing websites. She's got a graphic design eye that I would kill for, and she doesn't want to do that. She'd rather rub furniture down that she's recycling from Facebook. And I just get very frustrated. And this is where it came from, this topic, is I was trying to unpick what my frustration is and where it comes from and what I can do about it. And I realised about 2 weeks ago that it's because I don't have any particular talent.
I don't think that's true, and I knew that's where you were headed. I don't agree with you at all on that.
Wait.
Good.
I don't want this to sound like a woe is me, poor me, sorry pity session. That's not how it feels. What I'm frustrated, I've got lots of talents, I know I have. But I can speak, I can go on video quite happily, I've got no stage fright, I can learn very, very fast. I think it's my main talent, is I can learn fast, and I can synthesize and simplify for people, I know that. But what I don't have, really, even though I've tried over the years to develop it, I don't have an artistic talent. That's something that I'm obviously naturally good at. I did art college, was not very good at that really. Did fashion design, I was all right, but it made a bit of a living for a while, but wasn't one of the stars like I wanted to be at St Martin's, you know what I mean? So I think that's where my frustration is, that I've either not got one or I've never uncovered a natural, now this is funny for an atheist, God-given talent. So, so then obviously we talk about outliers, Malcolm Gladwell's book, which is fantastic, and it talks about how people who spend 10,000 hours become masters of their craft. 10,000 hours being pretty much every evening and weekend for 10 years. So, you can start your 10,000 hours when you're a kid and your mother forces you to do music lessons or whatever. And it's about how people with slightly less natural God-given talent, if you excuse the phrase.
Excuse me, Nicola, the rare event of my mobile phone ringing needs to be stopped.
God, really?
No, hold. I can't even find it. Hold on.
It's not happened in 5 years, Jim.
I know. Let me just see. One missed call. Oh, Sharon. Right, I have to call you back, Sharon.
Someone's got your mobile number.
Oh, quite a lot of people have got it these days because I'm mobile, aren't I?
Of course you are, yeah.
Right. 10,000. Well, interesting there. You made a distinction between talent and craft.
Well, okay, let's come back to that because that's an interesting point. And just wanted to say that, in Outliers, it's been proved over and over again that people who are not so talented but who apply themselves and practice, often win out in commercial and successful terms over people who are perhaps more talented but take it for granted, don't hone it so well.
Yes. So
in a business context, if you can find a talent and really go for it and really hone it, then you're quite likely to be successful. The challenge for the rest of us is, what if you don't have an obvious talent? How do you go forward from there?
Is it my turn now?
Yes, it is.
Well, I think you're mixing up the two, and I think they're oil and water. I think your talents do lie in the area of business, but I think the things that you were talking about on the talent shows, and Heather and Phoebe and Sarah, are nothing to do with, they don't have a business context necessarily. And whilst I love it if we can bring the two sides together for my client, I don't think it's a requirement. So, for instance, as an outlier myself, and a master of my craft of 20 years of doing accounts and VAT, the girls that worked for me were always very cross that I knew where the error was. Like, I've got a difference, Judith. Yeah, we'll have a look there. Well, how did you know that? Well, because I've done it for 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely distinct from, I was thinking about this in bed last night. I was thinking about when I eventually settle down, I want to get out of storage my piano music. And I know it'll be really hard to get back the level of talent that I had, such as I had. I had grade 4 clarinet, I had grade 6 piano, I had grade 5 theory, which is something you have to go on to a certain level. And I never practiced a day in my life. That was just natural talent. And I took it to the fullest extent that it would go and no further, because I wasn't prepared to put any welly into it. And I'm not even sure I am now. And I had some sympathy with Heather and Phoebe and Sarah, not just because they're your sisters and daughters.
Oh, charming!
But because it does seem, I'm not sure what the word is, ungrateful to have a God-given talent for the things that you listed. So a photographer, a homey person, that Sarah's good at home design, and your sister and Heather is a brilliant singer. Actually, it does seem churlish, doesn't it, to the onlooker to not feel the need to, using accounting language, commercially exploit that. And so to have talents that we don't choose to pursue because there are other things that we find more interesting or grab our attention. I mean, I've never fallen in love with a man that didn't have a talent, whether it was a musician or a chef or a photographer. But I saw something on Facebook last night that says, don't buy potential. Don't buy into other people's potential. If they're not, don't fall in love with a man because he has a potential to be a brilliant musician or potential to be a brilliant photographer. Go with what's there now. And I thought, oh yes, I put a lot of effort into men trying to help them, just as you're doing with your sister and your daughter, trying to help them with this, what I perceive to be their God-given artistic talent that I didn't have. I'm not sure that's right.
I think there's another word popped into my head there, which is passion. So when you were describing playing the piano, I was thinking, no, that's not a talent. Your ability to sing is a talent.
What's the difference?
Well, because
there's no difference between playing the piano and singing.
No, let's just unpick this a little bit, because playing the piano, I know someone who is the most unbelievably good piano player, and yes, he has done 10,000 hours and way more, because he is absolutely passionate about it, absolutely loves it, and he's brilliant. He has got a jazz sensibility that hardly anyone else did. And at 14 years old, he was going down the jazz jam and playing piano better than anybody else in the room, because he's got a natural talent. He's now at some fancy school in New York, and he's just come out of doing his music degree, and he's playing gigs all over the shop. So that's a talent. And then there's the passion, which I suppose is that you have to have the passion to develop the talent, spend the 10,000 hours. And actually, I find people attractive who have a passion about anything, even if it's not a talent, if it's just about anything. If they're
Yes, I agree. So stamp collecting.
And then, yes, even that, yes.
Yes, if they're passionate about it, it's the passion for their thing that's appealing. Yeah.
And then there's a craft, which is something I think like carpentry or plumbing or whatever.
Or accounting, yeah. It's a skill.
Or playing the piano, actually.
Yeah, well, no, I don't agree. I think music is music, but I think that you're crafty, a craftswoman. You're a craftswoman in your.
I can make a funnel, like
in your business. Yeah, exactly. And I think what this topic is all about really is not talent per se, so much as working out what we want in our life, irrespective of what we call it, and working out whether or not it's something we want to make a business out of or just enjoy in our lives.
Yeah.
Because most people in jobs, for instance, they have a job and they pursue this hobby passion thing in their part time, in their lives, in their hobby space, whatever that's called, your private time.
Yeah.
It's only us that try and hobble them together, really.
Yeah. And then there's the other issue, which is that people with talent, especially unusual talent, are often crippled by self-doubt and self-esteem, aren't they? So that stops them from doing the things that they know they could do, and actually they really enjoy once they do it, because they dread it more than they look forward to it and relish it.
Well, I agree with that, and I could never do what those people on those talent shows do, because unlike what you believe, I believe most of them have limited talent, actually, and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel looking for something we can commercially exploit. Now, what I would say is that, but the point is, I'm in awe of the people who go on to the talent shows, the bake-off, the dancing, anything where you're put to the test on primetime television with everybody looking. I mean, that's amazing. I wouldn't dream of doing that. There is nothing on God's earth that would persuade me to do that, however passionate I was about something.
See, I know that I could go through all of those talent shows and I wouldn't be any good at any of those things, but I would, and I'd be bitterly disappointed as well that
let's go with the cake one for a minute, which I haven't watched since it moved to Channel 4, but there's a good example, isn't there? And I think it's quoted in, it's certainly quoted in the E-Myth, and it's quoted in something else and something else. It's oft quoted, which is, we often used to say, what do people ask you for your advice about? Well, how to whip up a Victoria sponge. If your talent is baking, and you're prepared to pursue it in the way that is currently could be a fast track to a new career, which it is with MasterChef and Bake Off and all of those things. If you're prepared to put yourself through 12 weeks of hell, you could have a new life next week. Those ones that come back on MasterChef to taste the food, they've all got restaurants and cookbooks, and
they have.
They've changed their lives through being brave enough to have their talent tested against others.
Well, Kenny Tutt, the bank manager from Worthing,
yes,
his restaurant is flourishing.
Yes.
And that's, in spite of what Steve used to say, which is half the catchment area is in the sea. Because of the MasterChef connections, he's got a really good style.
So that's what telly does for you, you see. And maybe that's what the clever ones know. And I think the other ones just know they love baking. And all their friends have said, you're so good at baking, why don't you enter the bake-off and see if you get through the rounds?
Yeah.
Did you see Nicola Bird saying that she was talented at X, Y, and Z, and she'd entered the competitions X, Y, and Z and not got through any of the starter rounds? So it clearly isn't necessarily about talent. It's about, I think...
Well, funny enough, because she was going to be someone who I mentioned, because since she's discovered that she's got a talent for making the most beautiful cakes.
Yes. Well, icing, it's decorating them, isn't it? I don't know about the cake inside, but it's these beautiful flowers and things that she crafts. Yeah.
And now she started flower arranging as well, and so Sarah entered. What was it? Sarah entered to go on a first date.
I wouldn't dream of watching. I couldn't bring myself to watch any of those.
Oh, they're actually the one with Fred Sirio is really, really good, and they use psychological profiling.
No. I'm covering my ears. I don't even want to hear it.
Anyway, the point is that even Sarah wasn't mad enough to get through the first round.
No. Well, I think that's the point. Is they are pulling together a combination of people that they think are going to make good telly, which isn't necessarily the same as being talented, although we hope that it is, the talent will win out.
Heather going on at The Voice, because she's been headhunted for The Voice. They actually talent scout people as well.
Yes.
And she is terrified to go on it, because if she doesn't get through because she's just not what they're looking for in explosive television, then it would be perceived by her peers as a failure.
Yes, I think she's right on that. I think you're managing she's a professional singer. I think you're managing your reputation in that regard. Although somebody more emotionally robust than me or Heather would go, to hell with that, and do it anyway.
Yes, I would. Basically,
you would, because you're more ballsy. Yes, you're more out there.
Yeah. So this is an interesting conversation, isn't it?
It is, and there's another point here as well, which is if you break through into, say, the music industry or any industry that's based around talent, it takes us back to the place we were at with the modelling at the beginning, which is they're often not very nice places to be, and people with slightly sensitive dispositions can be eaten up and spat out by these industries.
Yeah, which is why you have to take your cash, invest it in something solid, and then get out as quickly as you can.
Well, quite frightening, isn't it, really?
So I was asked by my mentor. I had a meeting with my mentor on Monday, and he asked me to bring a list of my assets, marketing assets, personal assets and strengths, and a list of my challenges. So that was an interesting experience, was to write down, my physical marketing assets, like the, books and things, the ones I'm proud of, and then also to write my strengths down. And I was thinking about it in the context of talent. And I was thinking perhaps my talent is that I simply don't give up. I'm persistent. I don't give up. I don't know, is that a talent?
Well, I think it's a gift. I think your talent is that ever since you discovered internet marketing, you found it endlessly fascinating.
Yes, and I'm passionate about it.
Yes.
About it for other people as well.
And actually, you give up things faster than you can say knife, but you've never given that up. And I can remember it's when you came back from wherever you'd been, and you and Steve were at the Acacia, and you both discovered it and got into it. It was about 2005, I think. And from then onwards, you've stuck to that, and you're more knowledgeable than most people we know in our peer group. And I think you have a talent, and we've discussed a lot of your talents on this show, which is, you're a fast starter. There are lots of admirable qualities that you have, and I think talent is a much broader thing than somebody from Essex warbling on X Factor.
But the star quality in my star creator profile says, well, why am I not up on stage?
I know the answer to this one, and I've told you it over and over and over and over and over, and you won't pay any attention to me at all. You want to be a star. This is what this conversation is about. Roger Hamilton said, forget your second profiles, it's your primary one that counts. And you're so much more of a creator than you are a star. You can do star, but the fact is you want to be a star. Sorry, you can't force that. It's like people going, I wish I was a creator. Star isn't where your genius is. Creator is where your genius is. Resist it because you want to be a star. And yes, you can get up on the stage and do that, and you love it. But it isn't your profile. Your profile is creator. Sorry. I've told you that for 15 years, and you ignore me every time I tell it to you.
Oh, well, perhaps I'll listen this time.
That doesn't mean you're not talented. It just means your wealth creation is not going to come via the bit of your profile that's about being desirous of being on stage.
I think having a mother who is in showbiz and having a sister who's in showbiz is just the worst environment for me, because
it says I want to be a star, and therefore people taking it lightly and preferring DIY, of course, would stick in your craw.
Yeah, it does. So what do you? Okay, so you've honed your craft. What do you think your natural talents are? Communication. Okay, that's nice and useful considering what you do. I wouldn't have thought it was nice or useful when I was an accountant, for instance. But of course, I was the face of the business, and I had to see all the potential new clients and manage the staff, all sorts of things which I recognise now are not in my zone of genius. But I've been reflecting a lot, and if I'd ever wanted to write a blog post this week, I would have wanted to write on how important it was to me to discover that I'm a creator, because my 50% introvert had been completely neglected for 50 years, and all my joy now is in discovering that in that bit that I had never had a look in, because I thought we were all extroverts. I thought we were all outgoing people, all people that had to go to meetings and get new clients and, do all those things and go to conferences and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I haven't thought this through. I am a naturally talented musician, and I haven't really done anything with it. Because I wasn't prepared to put my back into it, but I take a lot of joy in it. I have enjoyed writing and probably will again. I do enjoy communicating through the written and spoken word, and latterly it's mostly the spoken word. So actually, when I listen to these things, it's a great joy that we're thinking through on the hoof what we feel about things. And often I think, you did rather well there at explaining what you meant, given that I didn't know where this conversation was going to go. Yeah. I think that's, a preparedness not to be over-rehearsed, because you can't be if I don't know where you're going to take the talent conversation. But I thought it would be interesting. I thought, well, wherever she goes with it, I'll be all right, because it's a topic that is interesting. And hopefully of use to people listening to decide what they've got.
Well, I think there's three things here. Either you're naturally talented at something and you go all the way with it, so you're one of the world's leading violinists, or you've got a talent, and like me, you're not prepared to work at it hard enough, so actually it sort of sits on the back burner and it's always there and it's joyful, but you don't bring it to market in any way, sense, shape or form. Or three, we combine the two into a business, which you've done, I've done, all my clients do. But there's no requirement, is there, to do any of those? It's down to us, or up to us. And I think there was a lovely quote on Facebook this week, which is it was from the woman that wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. It was about, the opportunity here with your talent is, sorry to use an accounting word, but exploit is the only word I can think of. I don't mean exploit. It means just make the fullest of. It's your choice to make the fullest of your own talent or not. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. because it's your life and you can do what you like with it. I think it's fascinating that talented people like Heather, for instance, is currently more interested in DIY. I mean, if that's her passion, and I think it is, because she's got this app and she's redesigning the little cottage in Shoreham, isn't she? Is she doing that out of commercial necessity in part, but is she doing it because that's where
she enjoys it?
Yeah. And you can't blame her. And so actually, although she's loved singing in super venues all around the world with super talented people, there's a lot of schlepping around with the world with a suitcase and being away from your loved one.
Yeah, that's true. And you could argue that she's actually made more money from her various property exploits over the years than she ever has from singing.
And so what has this got to do with money? So the relationship between talent and money, you don't have to exploit it. You can just enjoy it.
Yeah. You see, coming to the realisation that, why I was so frustrated with talented people around me, not exploiting their talents, has actually give me the opportunity to let go now. I think I can let go.
I think that would be great.
So do they.
Yes, I know. And I've often stuck up for them in that regard.
Oh my God, how funny. Right. Oh, what's your word of the week then?
Trust, for reason I'm going to explain to you in Who or What's Impressed.
Okay. I'm waiting. I've been waiting for... I'm not good at waiting, as you know.
Right, roll back. Is your word waiting or wait?
Wait.
Wait, okay.
Waiting. No, waiting.
Waiting.
I'm waiting for someone to pay me. I'm waiting for a new project to start, and I'm waiting for a translation for one of my businesses. I need something translated in written English.
You're quite dangerous when you're waiting because you're likely to fill the gap with something.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to. The new sofa is having a good impact on that.
Oh, let's all go for a cuddle. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for a cuddle and watch a good film. Okay, what about project updates then?
No, blank here.
Oh, really? I thought you said you had something, right?
No.
Only has topped 125,491 downloads. We're tantalisingly close to the 500 there. I realised yesterday we don't ask our listeners to do two simple things which would make a massive, massive difference.
Well, we have in the past, but...
Yeah, I know, but I think we should be asking every week. Dear listener, if you like this podcast, one of the two things you can do that make a huge difference would be to share it with one friend this week. Just forward it an episode long. Anything you think they'd like, that would be great. And the other thing would be to write a good review on iTunes, particularly because we've only got about 37 reviews. They're all glowing, but until you get to 100 reviews, you don't really get anywhere on the iTunes algorithm. So that would be absolutely fabulous.
What you could do for me, if you wouldn't mind, is could you just go to our website and every blog post and check whether the video about how to do that is still on the bottom of the show notes? I believe it is, but I don't know whether it dropped off. I'm not sure.
Own it, but yeah, it does occasionally drop off because the code gets missed.
Okay. All right. So actually, we've got to tell, is her name Margelle, to make sure it's on every week?
Yeah, no, it's still there.
Okay, good. So actually, going on that point, if you want to review us on iTunes, if you go to ownitthepodcast.com and click into any of our show blogs, right down the bottom, there's a video that's very short by Nicola telling you how to do that. You might check it's up to date, Nicola. The process still works because Apple are a bit well known for changing things.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you're not, don't have an iTunes account, I know there are people in the world that don't. Just reviewing us on Google Play or Android, anything at all would be absolutely marvellous.
Cool.
Thank you very much. And who or what's impressed?
Yeah, I've got two. I don't know where my head's been at, but today is Jack Reacher Day for me, but actually it was published on the 29th of October, so I'm 9 days late in downloading my latest Jack Reacher, and I usually take the day off for that, but I won't be able to read it until the weekend. All the Amazon reviews are not universally great, but, who cares?
Does he bring a book out every year on the same date?
It's not on the same date, it's on approximately the same time of year.
Right, okay, just in time for Christmas, yeah.
Well, it could be, yes.
I love Jack Reacher. So.
Yeah, me too. So I've downloaded it. I'll read it over the weekend. Yeah. Who or what's impressed is going back to the Abraham video, Complete Trust in Life, which is causing me to stop stressing about moving. So, this week I'll be in 3 different beds. Monday and Tuesday in one bed, Wednesday and Thursday in another bed, Friday in another bed. And I was stressing about various aspects of that. I'm particularly worried about the gig I've accepted in Lewisham, where I can't even park anywhere near it. I can't even pull up outside, which means I've got to completely rationalise everything I own, put some more stuff into storage, and I can only take into the flat what I will be able to carry, and I can't leave anything in the car because it's Lewisham.
Yeah.
And so I went into a frenzy one night this week after bedtime, looking at Amazon and thinking, right, what do I need? I need storage bags, I need suitcases on wheels, I need all sorts of things I hadn't got. And then in the daylight, typically, you can talk yourself down from this. And I thought, I didn't have a gig for these 2 nights, and then it turned up, and I got it straight away. If anything is supposed to happen, it will, and stressing doesn't help. So I've made this deliberate decision and intent this week, whenever I catch myself doing it, to just chill, Judith. If it's meant to be, it'll be fine, it'll be easy. If you need help, it'll turn up. You know what I mean? So trust was my word, and I'm absolutely living this now, is just stop over planning, over stressing, over logisticking, over everything, because it just it's not necessary. If you've got complete trust in life, you can fall back on that. It's not necessary.
Yeah. Yes, I've been listening to a lot of Esther this week. That's what I've been doing while I've been waiting.
Well, I think that's a good use of time. I don't think it can ever be too wrong. If in doubt, double the dose. I think, well, she's funny, and it just makes you fit, raises your vibe.
Yes, it does. It's like an active meditation, isn't it?
Yes. Who or what's impressed you?
You're going to laugh. It's Will Smith vlogging his colonoscopy.
Oh, my word, that sounds grim.
Yeah, well, no, he didn't actually vlog the details.
Oh, thank heavens.
He basically just talked to camera while he was going through the process.
Oh, gosh.
But the interesting bit was when he actually filmed his conversation with his specialist, and they had actually found a precancerous polyp in his bowel that they wouldn't have found if they hadn't had the colonoscopy. He said he had to be talked into it. He was extremely reluctant, as people would be. So that's why he decided to go through the process on his vlog and educate people, because apparently African American men at his age, that's one of the biggest killers. So undetected cancer in the bowel. So he thought he had a duty to do it. He didn't actually really expect them to find anything, and the fact they did and got it out at the same time was it was interesting watching his reaction to that. But I've got an enormous admiration for him and his family, and I was even more impressed with the fact that he did this.
Can I say as well, in terms of our focus of the week, that man has got more talent than most of us put together.
I know, and he's fantastic looking.
He's made a very happy life, fully exploiting and exploring his talent.
I know, and he's so good looking still. He must be 50 odd. And his wife's amazing, and they're obviously very much in love still, and they work at that, you can tell. And his kids are so talented as well.
I think he's very funny too. I don't think he takes himself overly seriously, so far as we know. He gives great value when he comes on things like Graham Norton. Yeah. He's a kind of all-round geezer, actually.
And just to end the show on a high, I watched a video of his just after this colonoscopy one, where he went to a new film studio that's been set up by a black guy called Tyler something. I'm sorry, I don't know his surname. And he set it up in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's on the site of a Confederate Army base.
Oh.
So he's thoroughly enjoying the fact that he's now opening I think he's a big film producer. And he's named each one of the sound stages after black people who've achieved.
Oh, brilliant.
And Will Smith is one of them. So I went.
Is he the bespectacled guy who's called Steve something?
No, he's Tyler something. Hang on. Oh, and he told a nice story, which was that as you drive down the freeway towards the studios, you can actually see the sign. Tyler Perry, here we go.
Oh, yes.
And you can actually see the sign to his studios on the left-hand side, and right next to it is a sign to the place where he and his mother arrived, homeless and penniless, when he first came to the country.
Oh, and
he said, he gets absolute... I'm still processing that. It's just too overwhelming to think about.
I can imagine.
Yeah, very nice, very positive. Go and watch it. It's lovely. Will Smith getting his soundstage opened.
I'd certainly rather watch Will Smith talking about Tyler Perry than vlogging his colonoscopy.
It was very funny, Judith. Good, that's us done.
All right, see you next week.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, bye.
Enjoy your places.
Yes.
It's a brand new day.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.